his name? Yeah. Oh yes, and he's not free to use it, ladies and gentlemen. Please go well done for Mr. Dan Ridley-Ellis. Go on!
Alright. I wasn't quite sure I was going to kick this off, but looking at you lot, I reckon I'm going to probably be on safe ground with the Lord of the Rings joke. So, like Treebeard from the forest of Fangorn, I am not a tree, but most of my friends are. Now, Lee, we live in a country that doesn't have enough trees. We need forests for environmental reasons, for nice places to go and visit, somewhere for metaphorical bears to metaphorically poop. We also live in a country that doesn't have enough houses. We need houses that people can afford, that are cosy and warm, that feel nice and safe as we hide from the metaphorical bears. Now, I don't want to get too technical here, but trees are made of wood, and wood can be used to make houses. Now, the slightly confusing thing is that the more wood we take out of the forests, the bigger the forests can become. How to explain this? People like cheese. I like cheese, I really like cheese. If you go to the supermarket, you will see that they have loads of cheese. They have loads of cheese because people like cheese. There is a lot of cheese in the world because people will pay money for cheese. Only about 36% of the cheese in the world is naturally occurring, unmodified by human activity. Or maybe that's forests. Anyway, if we look after our forests correctly, we can have wood forever. Which reminds me of an idea for a joke I had. So an English elm, a Welsh oak and a Scots pine start growing in a bar. Now at this point you're probably thinking, where's he going to go with his tree-based racism? He's clearly not Scottish, yet we're in Scotland. This seems a bit risky. Well, the truth is, I don't know where I'm going with this either. They're trees. We have to wait 30 or 40 years for the punchline. That's the thing about trees. They take a while to grow. In some branches of forest research, you could be retired by the time anyone finds out that you made a mistake. And if they find out sooner, well, forests are excellent places to hide a body. Now, in some parts of the world, a plantation conifer can be grown for 80, 100, even 120 years. This presents something of a problem. A lot happens in 100 years, the world moves on. These were trees that were planted in a world before smartphones, before the internet, before pocket calculators, before stainless steel. This was a time when the forest industries were macho places, and lumberjacks slept all night and worked all day. But they didn't wear bras, because bras have not yet been invented. It's true, they haven't. So how does a forester, working at the time of the invention of aeroplanes and plastics, know what kind of wood we're going to be interested in the year 2011? Well, he doesn't. He can't tell the future. He's not an astronomer like Harry. But there are ways around this, and that's where my research comes in. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I think about is wood. And wood comes in many forms. Even within a single species, there is a lot of variation from tree to tree, and it should be possible, in theory at least, to go up to a tree and say, well, this one is good for building, or this one is good for fencing, or paper, or bioenergy. What's good in wood depends on what you're going to be using it for. It's like, for example, cheese. What's good in a cheese depends on the situation. Maybe you want a nice soft spreadable cheese that melts in the mouth. Maybe you want a good hard strong tasting cheese for your sandwiches. Maybe you want cheese that lasts a long time nailed to an outside wall. Now, I'm a structural engineer, so I'm mainly interested in construction timber. And if you're planning an erection, well, you're probably interested in stiffness. Nobody wants a floppy building. Stiffness is a measure of how much something bends under load. We call it by the technical name modulus of elasticity. We shorten modulus of elasticity to MOE because life, like stand-up comedy, is too short to keep saying modulus of elasticity. Now, with modern technology, we can make quite sophisticated measurements, and X-rays and laser scanners are now quite common in sawmills. And stiffness, MOE, can be measured by something called an analog manual mass excitation rod. Now, this is a really cool piece of kit. I bought one of these to play with at home, and I brought it along to show you. Okay, here comes the science bit. The speed that sound travels through a material is a function of the density and the stiffness, the MOE. So if I make a noise with the hammer, I can time how long it takes that noise to travel along the wood and measure the stiffness that way. Alternatively, I can listen to the note it makes as the piece vibrates and calculate the MOE, the stiffness from that. It's like, to pick something completely at random, cheese. If you were to make a cheese xylophone, you can't, I've tried. But if you could, the kinds of music that you could play with your cheese xylophone would depend very much on the sort of cheese that you had access to. So I was in the lab the other day and I was making some repeated measurements to work out the effect of support conditions on the accuracy of measurement of stiffness, MOE. So I had some timber laid out on trestles, and I got the microphone set up, fixed to an FFT analyzer, you guys know what I'm talking about. And I was basically stood there, whacking on a bit of wood like this. And I was starting to think to myself that maybe I've been a bit overqualified for this job. But then I started to think, well, you know, what if my 2-year-old self could see me now? I think he'd be pleased. Oh yeah, I'm living the dream. So, to sum up, what we do isn't mysterious, mischievous, or devious. It is simply that trees are good generally, and in particular trees are good when the MOEs are good.
Yes.
Trees are good when the MOEs are good. Trees are good when the MOEs are good. Big musical finish. The leaf is connected to the small twig. The small twigs connect to the big twig. The big twigs connect to the bigger twig, technically known as a branch, and when disconnected from the tree, commonly called a stick. And you can hear the stiffness in the logs. Thank you very much.
Apparently, if you buy a Christmas tree, that man can tell you when the needles will drop off. Now, if you haven't got a Dyson, that's a handy thing to know. You know,